I've been working on this project a long time, and of all of the wheels that I've had to invent here, the one that caused me the most heartburn was getting the conduit out here in order to bring out Ethernet, data, and power to operate the opener, the electronic eyes, the keypad, the security cameras, everything that's got to happen. I spent 2 days pulling pull ropes and then pulling actual lines through these pipes. I used 3/4 inch conduit, probably saved myself $500, and there were several times when I thought I should have used bigger, because a small conduit makes it a lot harder to pull, for instance, 2 of these things for 300 feet. But we did it. We used number 10. They tell me that the voltage drop on number 10 over this distance is minimal. We've got a 20 amp breaker. We've got strings and connections everywhere. I'm beginning to think maybe it's right. So here's what I rigged up. I adapted my shop vac down to the same 3/4 inch conduit that I'm using. At the end of each of my 3/4 inch conduit runs, I would just put a coupling so I could slip this into there and get a real good vacuum seal. I took a sandwich bag, just a garden variety sandwich bag, and I taped it to the end of this pull string. And if this was a piece of conduit sticking out of the ground, I would just kind of stuff that in there and then use the taped end as a ramrod, get it in there, walk to the other end, or in most cases have Kelly on the other end hitting go, insert the shop vac, and hit frappe. And wind it around the rotors inside your shop vac. Voila. In this case, it pulled at 330 feet. Now I had to baby it, but it went. $19, 500 feet. Wes from Quality Fence is going to be here tomorrow. I spent the last 3 days making sure that I have wires and pull strings and attachments and wet condition boxes and everything that I can think of, that a carpenter can think of, that an electrician's going to need. I have only a faint hope that I'm actually prepared, but I know this: I've slept really well the last couple nights, and I think maybe electricians work a lot harder than I thought they did. Let me show you what I've gotten accomplished. You see these 2 wet locations PVC junction boxes? That's because I didn't quite get the main feeds right. I got them close. I got them close enough to make them work with these extra connection points right here. These 2 runs of data come from the house. One of them goes straight over to a camera, and one of them goes with a slightly circuitous trip over to the keypad. This is the free out magnetic dissonance detecting circuit that will let the opener know when somebody drives over the driveway coming up to get out. These things are for use when Wes gets here, that'll make plain when you're watching it happen. So this second box is kind of a Band-Aid box. It's a way to divide and reattach and go back and forth from where the opener is over there to where the power can be intercepted right here and run off to that footing over there, because I didn't put a straight run from the opener location to that footing. This is the footing where the opener is going to locate, and I've still got a lot of pull ropes to deal with. I mean, spaghetti is spaghetti. Lots of power. I had, what's that, about 5 feet of extra wire from the 250-foot pull. This is a data loop which comes out back underground and goes up to the keypad. I didn't show you guys putting in this keypad. Sometimes it's just not worth it, right? But this is the post. Probably nobody's going to want to run into that. It's a place to use the post I made by mistake. That's a 120 volt box for a light. And this is where the data comes up and will present out here. So on the roadside, this is the attachment for the camera. Lots of extra data line for that. Ben will hook that up tomorrow. And then over here on the latch side was a great deal of mechanical head scratching. This is power coming up for the electronic eye. This is going to be a simple outlet, wet weather tolerant, for plugging in Christmas lights and running tools. And this is power coming up into an LB, through the flange, into the electromagnet. And I'm not sure if the code would have anything good to say about this, but that's a 1/2 inch nipple, about 1.5 inch nipple, threads into the side of that electromagnet. And then it slides in the inside of this 3/4 inch LB with a lock ring around it to lock it against the LB and pull the LB over against the post. Pretty sturdy. Over here we have a very similar thing. Here is where the data comes out of the footing, runs upstairs. I don't have a conduit bender, so this was done in a blacksmith shop. And it runs right on up into the bottom of that bell box, and the connection will be made on the other side into the camera. In between the two posts, same thing, we'll have an outlet for auxiliary power, and then this is where the power lands before it goes out to the other electronic eye. Now, I don't think I'm going to walk you through any of the nightmares that were associated with a carpenter trying to do this electrical work, and frankly inventing wheels. I don't know how to attach EMT to I-beams, you know, and the LBs, and how to make the bends, but we did the best we could. We got good advice from Apex, good advice from Platt Electric, good advice from Kevin Eckerman, good advice from Wes, and hopefully when he shows up here in a day or two, he's not going to be disappointed in how I interpreted what he told me to do. I vastly underestimated how tricky it was going to be getting out of this underground and into the EMT conduit and up to the boxes, and how to make the bends and get the wires into the places where they need to be sturdy and safe and dry. I wasn't even close. Doesn't matter. It's in, and I'm about 90% sure that it's going to work just fine. It's showtime. The rubber is meeting the road. The world's best son-in-law, Benjamin Brewster, has just showed up, and he's going to start connecting the data. Got to have data these days. Let me show you this. Ben's toolbox looks a lot different than mine. No dust, no dirt, no spider webs, no blood. Stay in school, kids. So what are we doing here, Ben? What's your strategy?
Right here, we've got it cut. The next step is to strip off the outer sheathing, expand out the different wires, feed them all into this little clip, put it on, and then crimp it all down with this tool, and then trim off the excess with this tool.
Okay, sounds easy.
Now that they're all cut straight and fanned out and with a slight angle, that makes it easier to insert, and you can start on the one, get it in, and then get the next in, and then the next in, and they're gonna fight you the whole time. And at some point you just start pushing and hope for the best, and then you look at the output and see if they all came through, and in this case they did.
First time every time, Brewster.
First time every time, and because we don't trust ourselves or anything when it comes to these tiny little wires, you go double check it against the chart and everything is good. And I'm using the B pattern. There's two different patterns, one of them is taped out. It doesn't matter which of the two you use, you just use the same on both ends. Now that that's in place, you have to get this thing all the way inserted, get the cable sheathing all the way deep down in. It's kind of a finicky push-pull, push-pull, push-pull process. And then this part right here is a clamp that clamps down onto the sheathing, so you have to be past that. Once it's all down, you commit yourself to the process. All these things stick out in this particular one. Some of these you have to cut them off and insert them, and that style is a lot harder. But these ones where you just put them all the way through, I find is a lot easier. Jam it in, seat it all the way back, and then squeeze for all you're worth, and you'll see it cut all those little ends off. Squeeze! Pull it out, pull it out, and there it is.
Connection complete, just like that?
Yep, and we verify that, yep, that is the correct orientation. Okay, we're about to install the camera out here by the gate. This will be the wire that we're cutting to put the end on it so that we can attach the camera. And normally you would just cut this, put the end on, and be done, except depending on the device that you have, you may need to attach something else. So let's take apart this camera. So this is the camera that we'll be using. It's important to have the exact model because you never know what you're actually going to be installing. Once you take it apart, this is the mount, that's the actual camera. Inside you find the grommet, little rubber grommet. And this is important because the hole is only big enough for the wire itself. If you put the end on directly, you can't get this on. So you got to dig out the actual rubber grommet on this thing in order to get it all assembled, so that I don't lose everything, screw everything back together on the camera, having stolen the grommet out of it. Now I can cut the cable, thread this on to the wire, and then put the end on and slide this back down into place. Okay, now is the moment of truth. You've got the grommet, and you've got the wire. Don't forget to put it on. You'll have to envision in your mind to remember which way it's supposed to go on. Slide it on. Now, we're ready to go. Okay, and before we would release this to Scott to see, we will try to fake attach this. So we take the device apart, put the mount through, see that it does in fact stick out like it's supposed to, and that we can then attach it.
The next step is to consolidate the two internet feeds on the property, one to the shop, one to the house, into one only. That's why I ran the conduit with the data line from the shop to the house, so we can dispense with one internet bill and run everything off of the feed that's going into the shop. Ben's making that magic happen. There are some incantations, I think something about some chicken blood or something, but he tells me that in a relatively short period of time, I will have saved a little money and maybe not have to open up that gaping hole in the ceiling ever again. Okay, Ben, what have you done?
All right,
what's going on here?
This is the rack that everything in the local area network for Essential Craftsman connects to. So we've got various wires that are coming in from different parts of the area, from the property, and they all come into this top device, which is a rack-mounted patch panel. So all of the wires terminate on the back side of this thing and have a little label so we know which is which.
Okay.
And then we can take short little wires from that and take it and plug it into the servers, the other devices that are running the infrastructure on the property, and then there's a power distribution unit here, which just is a glorified power strip. So all I've done is connected that wire into the back side of this panel, and once we get the next switch that we need for inside, we'll run a cable from here into the server, and everything on the property will be connected through this one network through the same brand, and we can then discontinue the house internet connection and drop down a bill.
And we'll have a hardwire connection from here to there, which is more reliable in adverse
way
circumstances.
faster, way more reliable, way more defensible. Yeah, better in every respect.
Okay, well, it's nice to have a little high tech in the old tech, right? It's good. Well, that's it pretty much for the camera install and for the backstory on the data and servers and, 21st century blundering into my 19th century environment. And it's great to have a son-in-law who's conversant in 21st century, even if he would have died in the 19th. But what he really likes about his high-tech equipment in the Cave of Wonders, that's what we affectionately call the shop, is the incongruity between the items that are stacked roundabout, the spiders that inhabit the cavities, the blackberries that actually try to grow through the wall and claw their way into where the binary code is going a million miles an hour. But Ben likes it. He rolls with the punches. He is never slow to accuse me of being more than just a little bit sloppy. But what else do you expect from the best son-in-law in the world? Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.